I choose us.
Telisia, you were part of the I Choose Us journey from the very beginning. Since the idea for this podcast dropped in my spirit, you were one of the very first people that I shared this with. So after months of hard work and planning, we are finally in studio today, going to record our very first episode together. So welcome.
Thank you, Murna. It's been a journey, and wow, you spoke this and it's in existence. It's just such a testimony of the power of our words.
Amen.
Because you spoke it, and here we're sitting. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Such a privilege to have you in studio with us today, Telisia. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, what you do, and why you do it.
Wow. Well, I can put it in one sentence about myself or who you are. I'm Telisia. It took me a while to get here, to get to my truest self, to get to the person who I am today. Lots of broken relationships, even my own broken marriage, that led to this today. In a sense, this was destiny. I was almost forced by life to do the work that I do today. I started as a lawyer, so I was an attorney and then an advocate, and I always wanted to study psychology. And I got the opportunity, which I'm very thankful for, and I studied it full time. And I realized there's lots of things we don't know, and it's very important for us to get new information so that we can be the best version of ourselves, not just for ourselves, for our partners, and for our kids. Mm-hmm. Actually, for life. We owe it to life to get new information, to heal ourselves. Mm. And it was actually my divorce that caused the catalyst. I was facing a fork in my life, that proverbial fork where you have to choose. I'm either going to stay the same or I'm going to change. And I knew staying the same would cause me a lot of suffering, maybe even death.
Sure.
So I chose. And I don't regret it for one day of my life. Every day I wake up, I'm extremely thankful that I did the work.
Sure.
And the work isn't always easy. Sometimes you kind of find yourself on the floor lying, feel like you're bleeding in the pain. You sit with your pain, you sit with the disappointment, you sit with the rejection, you sit with the uncomfortableness of change, and I wouldn't want it any other way. So if you had to ask me who I am, I'm Telisia. And why do I do what I do? Because I really want to help people. I want to help people not make the same mistakes as I did. And also, I want to help people to live their best life. I believe God has mandated me to help people really become their best, truest self. And I had to go through a phase in my life where I wasn't myself before I could do what I do. I remember receiving prophetic word in 2018. And the word was that I dig in muddy places. I dig for diamonds, and then I take the diamonds and I brush them clean and I present it to the world, And these are people and relationship problems that I work with, and I help people. I don't rescue people, not at all. I just facilitate change. So for today, that's who I am.
Amazing.
Yes.
Telisia, what on a day-to-day basis, how do you help couples at your work?
Well,
or tell us first, what's your company's name?
What's my company name? My company name is TCF. It's Tilesia Colyn Foundation. So Telisia Colyn Foundation is actually a name I received from the Lord in 2001. I really wanted to study psychology and I couldn't. There wasn't any money. So my dad actually said, we have to go back to the hostel at Varsity and collect your stuff. So I said, no, let me just find out about a bursary or something. And I couldn't get a bursary. I don't know if my marks or my grades wasn't good enough, but okay. I got a loan and I had to continue with my LLB in law. And I sat there at the loans department, if you want, And I saw this vision, a table, and lots of students approaching me, and I'm scouting them. And I just heard TCF. I saw TCF. I'm like, Lord, what is this? What? It's right? I said, Lord, what is this? Telisia Colyn Foundation.
Wow.
And I clearly heard the Lord saying that because of you, many students will not be in the position you were and or are. At that time, I couldn't study psychology. I didn't have the funds to do it. So TCF was born in 2001.
Wow.
And I could finally start the business, so to say, in 2020 after my full-time studies in psychology. So it's TCF and then Holistic Solutions. Holistic Solutions in the sense that we are tripartite human beings, meaning we are three in one, just as God is. We are 3 parts of ourselves: body, soul, and spirit.
Yeah.
And it's important, if you want change in your life, to change on a holistic level, body, soul, and spirit. You know, when I feel, something's not right, you know, I feel that I can feel something's off. Then I go and I do a bit of a questionnaire or a reflection, and I ask, how is your body doing? Have you been drinking your smoothies? Have you been walking the dogs? Well, I'm moving to Melkbosstrand now, so I'll be walking on the beach, just by the way. And that's part of your exercise. And they've got Zumba classes, so I'll do Zumba. So body. Soul, have you been reading? Have you been doing your meditations, your mindfulness? Have you been writing and journaling? Have you been something like telling the truth with yourself, with others? Have you been honest? That's something that affects your soul, right? How is your demeanor towards people and yourself? How's your thinking style? Are you positive? Are you sowing good thoughts? Are you, investing in yourself, in your soul, in your essence, and then your spirit? Have you been spending time with God? Are you in His Word? Are you at church? Are you in communion? So body, soul, spirit, we need to be top notch.
Sure. That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's the business. It's an amazing journey. And hopefully one day, many students will benefit from what God is doing, because it's only Him that can do this. I promise you, as you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell me, Telisia, I actually attended 2 of your workshops already. Tell us a little bit more about your workshops that you have for individuals and couples.
Yes. I love the workshops I do. Actually, what happened after my divorce in 2018, I attended a program, a 4-day program with Dr. Cornel van der Merwe. She's a psychiatrist. At that time, she was in Pretoria. And now she lives in Cape Town, in Worcester. And Dr. Cornel has an amazing approach to life and to healing and to becoming your best self. And at that time, it didn't go well with me. I kind of suffered from that divorce. It was difficult. I don't like using the word difficult. At that time, it was. Dr. Cornel even said, you're not looking good. I'm worried about you now. And I thought, please don't, Doc. She often says when we present the workshops in Cape Town together, she says to some of the patients at the clinic, she says, I wanted to admit her. I'm like, Doc, don't say that, please. But it's just proof that I wasn't at a good place.
Yeah.
In any event, so I did a 4-day program with her. And then I did another follow-up in a group. And then we actually just started working together so well. I was her protege and I shadowed her. And then we started working and I started co-presenting the workshops. And I was driving with her in Cape Town one day and she said, well, why don't you start your own workshop? And I thought, okay, what will I call this workshop, And I just realized, love your life.
I love it.
Imagine if you can wake up every day and you can love your life, not the Joneses' life, not the doctor on the corner's life, not the, the beach babe there, your life, whatever your life may look like at that moment.
Yeah.
Imagine you can love your life. And then I realized, okay, how do you love your life? Because we have challenges in life, and when we have challenges, we often don't love our lives. We kind of think, this shouldn't happen to me, or why did this happen, or I'm suffering, or
I'm doing something wrong, or whatever.
I'm doing something wrong, or somebody else doesn't have this challenges, or why am I this and that? And I realized if you can get a bit of new information of where you come from and why you are the way you are and how you can become your best version, then you can grow and you can start to love your life also with different tools such as mindfulness and breathing. And you guys, you guys listening, there's so much information out there.
Yeah.
Look at this, what we're doing here. We equipping people with information.
Absolutely.
And there's just absolutely no reason in today's day and age to not have a successful relationship.
Sure.
To not have a successful relationship with yourself, with your partner, with your kids, with your siblings, with your parents, with your co-workers, with the person next door to you, with the person driving next to you. There's, in this day and age, that is information overload. There's no reason to still be sick, mentally sick, physically sick even, and stuck in a mindset that is deprived of growth and consciousness and healing. There's no excuse anymore because there's just too much information out there.
Wow.
The only excuse there is that you get people who aren't willing to do the work.
Yeah.
So the workshops is to equip people to love their life with new information. And I think people enjoy it. They really say they want more, and it's very exciting. Thank you for asking.
So that's the workshop. So couples can also book one-on-one sessions with you for couples counseling.
Yes, definitely. And in person or online. I have various couples who see me online. I have couples overseas who see me online. And the work works wonderfully because the people want to change and they want to do the work.
Yeah.
And I often work with couples, and when I do work with them, I do imago, which is a relationship communication and connection therapy, if I can put it that way. And it has a huge, huge following, and it really is an amazing technique and piece of technology to use in a relationship. Often we think in a marriage is a problem to solve. It's not, and often we think that our partner needs to change. And if they can just do it this way, it would be better. It's not right. And it's purely not right because it's in our differences where we are strong.
Wow.
Imagine you think exactly the way your wife does, or imagine I think exactly the way my husband does. Where will there be an opportunity for growth?
Yeah.
And I'm not just speaking about thinking, but doing as well. It's in the differences where our strength lies. However, we've been almost scared from a young age to be different, to accept differences, to understand differences. Mostly because our parents, and I'm not judging or criticizing parents at all. Parents are doing an amazing job out there. However, parents tend to project their own stuff on their children. What does that mean? It means if a parent, for example, doesn't like gymnastics and the child wants to explore that, often a parent would say, no, you'll not like it, or you'll break a leg or something, just because the parent didn't like it. And then there can be an opposite projection as well, where a parent vicariously lives through a child. So, for example, Yeah. The parent didn't play rugby because maybe there wasn't the finances for rugby tours and all of that. So then the parent would vicariously live through the child by influencing the child and prompting the child and projecting onto the child to be this great rugby player, where the child is maybe not at all that kind of person. That child is maybe more stronger in an intellectual field as on the sport field. So we project on our children. And then ultimately, yes, we end up with a broken self in a sense, a lost self in a sense. So yes, I'm just trying to get back to where we were talking about the couples that I help online, Imago, and the way that it's the differences that we embrace, yes.
Wow, amazing.
Because as children, we were raised that being different is dangerous.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I, from a young age, learned that if I do a specific thing a specific way, I'm loved. If I get A marks, and if I am a little bit more quiet and reserved, if I don't ponder about life too much, if I don't ask too many questions, if I don't think, because I'm prone to do that. Well, in the past, now less, because I know mindfulness. So I kind of got the message: don't be so much, don't think so much, don't tone down.
You basically lose your authentic self in the process.
Absolutely. You lose your authentic self, and it's as if your authentic self gets shamed in a sense.
Sure.
So there's two things that stands out for me now. It's one, we often are raised as children being scared of differences, because being different or doing things differently is not really acceptable. You can imagine your mother or your father at some point, they said, no, don't do it this way, do it that way. No, don't put it there, put it there. No, this is not how we do it like this. No, don't think like that, think like that. Now you get into a marriage. What do? You want to tell your partner, don't put it there, put it there. Don't do that, do that. Don't do this, do this.
We want to change each other.
Yeah. Can you change someone? I mean, think about it.
Sure.
It's so difficult to change yourself. It's so difficult to change real cellular change that is part of your neurology, not just a behavioral change like, okay, I quit smoking or I quit drinking or something. Changing your personality, changing the essence of who you are, becoming your truest self. It's even difficult for somebody to do it themselves. How can you expect that you can change someone else? Cannot. So we struggle in relationships because our little girl or our little boy, that inner child comes out to play in relationships. Look, there's no field that's going to trigger you as much as relationships trigger the inner child.
Absolutely.
And the reason for that is we got hurt and shamed in relationship. So where do we heal?
Wow.
We heal in relationships. We get hurt and shamed in relationships, and it's through relationships that we heal and change. And that's why you will most probably meet a partner that's going to trigger you, that's going to bring the worst out in you, that's going to push your buttons, and that's a good thing.
Amazing.
And it is amazing, and that's where couples make the mistake. They go into affairs, they separate, they get a divorce.
Sure.
Yes.
Telisia, let's take a step back. So, I mean, obviously you've seen so many couples, and so you've worked with so many individuals over the past how many years. What would you say are why are we struggling in relationships? Why are we struggling in marriage? Why is it so tough for us to get this thing right? Because we jump from one relationship to another and thinking, oh my word, I'm stuck again in this marriage. The answer is another partner. I married the wrong person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So many people make that thinking mistake where they think that oh my goodness, I married the wrong person. Oh my goodness, you are so bad. You are so this and that. It's your fault. And then what people often do, well, I want to say, I don't know what the statistics is now. I think more than 50%
Yeah.
of marriages end in divorce.
Mm.
What, let's then say more than half the population do, is they divorce and they think the grass is greener on the other side. They think they will be happy in another relationship. Where they stop to think is, what did I do to contribute to this relationship going downhill? What did I do that caused this? Because get this, you're 100% responsible for the relational space that you create with your partner.
Wow.
100%, not 50%. If that relationship is not doing well, then you're 100% responsible for that because it's the space you create in your relationship. And that's where people fail. They fail to take relational accountability and they just blame. And then they think, let me get divorced. Let me jump onto Tinder. Let me jump onto another dating site. Let me find a new person who will love me and adore me and be crazy. And then maybe for the beginning, it will be so. However, you will find the same pattern, the same problems that triggered you in the other new relationship, because the grass isn't greener on the other side because you're there as well.
Yeah.
The grass may be greener on the other side because you're not there. The moment you go to that grass with the same baggage, with your unhealed wounds, with the same issues that you created and had in your relationship, if you don't heal and do the work after divorce, you will have the same relationship, most guaranteed. There are exceptions. For example, where you were abused in a relationship and then you divorced because of the abuse, because I'm not saying you tolerate abuse.
Yeah.
However, there's fine nuances that follows us throughout. And yes, so couples tend to think, let me just get out of this marriage and let me find someone new. That's not the answer. The answer is work on yourself. Your question was, why do we suffer in relationships? Why do we have difficulty in marriages? It's because we don't know ourselves.
Sure.
It's because we really have no cooking clue who we are. You spoke about the authentic self, right? How many people know what their authentic self is? How many people have, after they studied or before their studies or during their studies, if they study or after school, sat and thought, let me go on a journey and discover myself. Some people do, and it's amazing. However, most people don't. Most people just want to find true love. And I know because I was there. I remember then I'm lying in varsity and I'm sleeping, well, just before I fall asleep, and then I'm thinking about this husband of mine, dreaming about him and where we'll meet and what we'll say, and then I'll say this, then he says this, and then I'll lie there for hours and dream about him. I wish I had dreamt about myself in a way that I wish I had dreamt about who I am, what I want to be, not what I want to become when I'm older, like a lawyer with lots of money. No. Like, who's the truest Telisia? How does her heart look? What does she stand for? What does she not stand for? What will she tolerate in life and what not? Where are her boundaries? What boundaries does she set for herself? Does she go partying and smoking all the menthol cigarettes in the world and allowing any guy to just woo her or take her number? Today, as I'm sitting here, I think there were 7 guys asking my number, and I'm not bragging. I'm just saying 7 guys in the last year asking my number, and I think I gave my number to 1, and that was for work, because I learned later in life. Fortunately, I learned. I can't say unfortunately because I learned.
Yeah.
But you don't have to give your number to any guy or every guy. You don't have to go on dates with every guy or any guy. I have set certain boundaries in place that I wish I had dreamt about and formulated back then when I thought about this guy that's going to come into my life and, sweep me off my feet. Because unfortunately, when I did meet someone, I didn't know myself.
Sure.
I didn't know what I stood for or not. I knew I didn't want to do certain things before marriage. However, I didn't know really why, for example, abstaining from sex before marriage.
Yeah.
Why? Because your mom told you to do it, or because it is something that's sacred and something that you wanted to do in a safe space because you actually don't know what you're doing when you have sex for the first time.
Yeah.
You get where I'm going. So yes, my gut feeling on this day says that people suffer in relationships because they don't know their authentic self. And because of that, they want the other person to
fill that void, isn't it?
Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly. To fill the void. And the question is, can you fill a void from the outside, which void has been caused from the inside?
Wow.
You can't. You cannot fill something from outside that
can
actually
only be filled from the inside.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. So that is to me the reason why we suffer. And then what happens is we end up in codependent relationships.
What does that mean?
Well, it means that we have this void and we try to fill this void with either sex, drugs, pornography, alcohol, nicotine. Listen, I'm not saying that if you're smoking or you drink some wine or so that you're filling your void with it. I'm saying in general, there are things we do, habits that we have in order to avoid sitting with our own pain. We try to fill it with relationships. We try to fill it with work. We try to fill it with do-it-yourself tasks. You get some of these guys who are constantly in the garage and not with their family. Why? They're trying to fill a void there.
Or in the gym.
Or in the gym. It's exactly, or at work.
Yeah.
Workaholics, trying to fill a void, number one. And also, number two, it's a defense mechanism. It's a defense mechanism not to be in relationship because, get this, relationships hurt us. And we get hurt in relationships because we don't know how to treat relationships with respect.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
Telisia, now tell me, why do we attract certain people in our lives? Where does that come from? Where does where do we start on this journey of self-discovery?
That is such an important question, and I wish I knew this before I ever fell in love. And then again, if I had done the work and I had healed myself and I had filled the void, I wouldn't have fallen in love with the men I did. It is what it is.
Wow.
Because when you are broken, brokenness looks attractive.
Sure.
Yes. When you are broken, brokenness looks attractive. And that's why we fall in love with certain people. In our early childhood, we had a parent, maybe a parent who's very busy and not attentive. We needed that attention. We needed that acknowledgement. We needed to be seen by that parent. We didn't get that. So life has an agenda. Life wants to give you that attention. Life wants to give you that relationship, that I see you, I acknowledge you. Life wants to give you that. The only way life can give you that is in relationship.
Yeah.
Yes, and sometimes you first need to not get it to get it. So what do? You don't fall in love with somebody who gives you attention and who's available and there, because that is sometimes seen as the boring type, It is, boring because you aren't.
It's not familiar to you.
It's not familiar. Exactly. You took the words out of my mouth. It's not familiar to you. I cannot fall in love with something which I'm not familiar to.
Wow.
I cannot fall in love with healed if I'm broken.
Wow.
And that is really profound. So then you fall in love with somebody that resembles that early childhood caretaker that didn't give you what you needed. I mean, if you fell in love with the early childhood caretaker who gave you what you needed, where's the fun in that?
Wow.
Where's the growth in that? Where's the consciousness in that? Where's the journey in that? You know, that's boring. That's really boring. You fall in love with the type of person who's going to give you less or nothing, exactly as what your early childhood caregiver didn't give you. If that makes sense, does that make sense? What do you hear? What do I say?
Because it's familiar.
Yes, because it's familiar, right?
Whether it's good or bad.
Exactly. It's uncomfortable. It's let me put it this way. When I grew up as a young girl, my dad didn't really give me so much attention. He smoked Camel and he drank Klipdrift brandy. That's brandy, brandewyn. He drank Klipdrift, and Klipdrift is a sweet tasting brandy, so it's nice, you know. And he didn't want to spill that, and he also didn't want to burn me. So he really didn't have too much space on his lap for a little girl. So the message I got was, "Kom, you know, move. You're too busy. I don't have time for you now. Nee, man, I'm not going to look at you now. No, you know, like." So the message I got was, "You irritate me. You're too much. I don't want you." So it was a message of rejection. That's in a sense what I learned in one part of myself from a male perspective. You know, a girl's first love, blueprint of love is her daddy.
Yeah.
So I learned that love is unsafe. Love is rejection. Love is hurt. Love is lies. Love is manipulation. Love is you irritate me. Love is you too much. So
Wow.
I kind of formed that. That was my formation of love. I kind of formed that as familiar love in a sense,
Wow.
picture. So Mornay, I couldn't fall in love with that blueprint with somebody that's
A nice guy.
a nice guy.
You know.
That's a nice guy.
That's available.
That's available.
That's present.
That's present. I'm getting goosebumps because now you're describing my soon-to-be husband.
Yes. Because you've done the work.
Exactly. My soon-to-be husband is available, is present, is a nice guy, is lovable, is allows me to be vulnerable, is honest, is caring, is a real man, has a reverence for life in the sense that he takes life seriously. He's scared, fearful of the how can I say, the bigness of God and of life and the importance of it. He doesn't just go about nilly-willy, you know, frolicking around life. So my blueprint now looks much different because I changed myself. I healed my inner self. I healed that little girl who couldn't sit on her daddy's lap. I took her and I sat with her on my lap. I reparented her. I gave her all the love she needed. I changed the blueprint. You see, with our brain will always take the better picture, always. So it's very easy to go and redo trauma. It's very easy to go and change the original blueprint if we have the tools.
Oh, wow.
And this is what I help couples with as well, and individuals, is to give you the tools to change that blueprint. So that broken looks extremely unattractive.
Amazing.
Yes.
So tell me, Telisia, you shared about your childhood now. How did that play out in the relationships, in the men that you fell in love with repeatedly before you did the work now?
I think you can imagine.
You were attracted to people that were absent.
Absent, broken.
Sure.
People who gave me the same message as my father. You irritate me. You shouldn't be so much, people who are prone to rejecting lovers or even family and friends, because that was familiar to me. Imagine this: if I put a human being amongst monkeys, like Tarzan, Tarzan's gonna pretty much grow up to be a monkey.
Wow, yeah.
So do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I couldn't have another picture of love, because I grew up with the picture of love being almost that of monkeys, but the picture of that being unavailable, broken, irritated, and so forth. So you can imagine that's how my relationships looked. It was not just that I was attracted to that. I also looked attractive to the other person's brokenness, because it's two people with shared brokenness. It's almost a trauma bond. It's two people that got hurt in the same area of life, in a sense, that attract each other. So I also had brokenness in me that attracted those men to me. And you'll walk into a room and you'll be like, oh, yeah, that looks good to me.
Yeah.
And there'll be like 300 men or 300 women, but that one person. And that's most probably the person who's going to share your hurt in a specific area. And there's many things we can go into it at length. There's attachment, for example, where you get born, and for the first about 2 years, you need to have one specific parent or caregiver available. If you didn't have that, we call it an attachment wound. Mary Ainsworth did lots of work on this. She has an experiment which would never be done today. It's unethical. But the strange situation test experiment, where she did the experiment with the babies to experience and to show attachment. And if you didn't have that primary caregiver who's available, who's attentive, who's there, present, then you'll have, like I said, the attachment wound, and that will play out in your relationships. You will be either anxious or avoidant, or, in anxious relationships, you'll be needy. Where are you? Why aren't you phoning? Why aren't you coming home? What's happening, Or you'll be avoidant. You'll kind of love bomb somebody and be very happy that they're with you. And the moment you have them, you are like, I don't know what to do with this person, and then you start avoiding them. The moment there's connection, there's the avoidance. If you didn't have those 2 years successful, the chances of you ever having a secure relationship without doing the work is, I want to say, 0.
Wow.
Yes.
So you can jump from one relationship to another. It's going to end up in the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's lots of proof for that. I know many people doing that. And in the process, destroying lives.
Wow.
Destroying their own lives, and mostly destroying the lives they get in contact with. Because if you're broken, brokenness is going to look attractive. Okay, number one. If you're broken, you are going to break if you don't do the work. And you'll be in one relationship and the next and the next, and the pitiful, most sad of all is that you will most probably have children with people who are equally broken. And what's going to happen with those children?
Sure.
Yes.
They're going to model whatever they see.
Exactly. Because monkey see, monkey do. You cannot have a healthy child psychologically out of an unhealthy environment. Think about it. You are the product of your environment. If you look at plants, for example, if their environment isn't conducive to growth, if there's no sunlight, if there's no water, what's going to happen to that plant? It's going to die. You know, the same as when you're a child and you grow up in a household that's dysfunctional, where the father is, for example, an alcoholic or a gambler or even to an extent a narcissist, and the mother is absent or the mother is in survival mode, for example. Or you grow up in a house where you have one of my clients, he was 4 years old. Actually, he was 2 years old when his parents got divorced. And then at 4, his parents remarried. Can you imagine what happens to that young boy? In the sense of, where's his stability? Where's his healthy relationship? Now he has 2 different parents on both sides, you know. And the fact is, then we start making these inner beliefs. We say, well, I'm never going to get divorced, or, well, maybe this is what it is, you know, and then I'll have like 6 or 7 marriages because it's normal. Our parents who are unhealed and who are broken and who jump from one relationship to the other cause children extreme harm. And in a sense, it infuriates me. It almost makes me want to go to authorities and say, listen, can people not have licenses before they have children? No, seriously. You bring a child into this world recklessly when you are unhealed, when you are broken, when you do it because you need someone or something to fill a void that you don't have the capacity to do yourself. That's reckless.
Yeah, Telisia, this is hectic stuff. Tell me, so obviously, I mean, we cannot change the houses that we were brought up in. We cannot choose our parents. It is our responsibility. You know, if you see certain patterns in your life, repeating relationship patterns, it's our responsibility to do the work. To become aware of our triggers, number one, to become aware of these things. Listen here, but why am I the way that I am? To become self-conscious. Listen here, why do I attract certain people in my life? Just press the pause button. Listen here, I have to do the work. And that's the start of the journey, of becoming whole again.
Exactly. The start of the journey of becoming whole again is to listen to the feedback that you get in relationships.
Wow.
Yes.
I love it.
Either one, you're going to realize it yourself. And I promise you, it's not going to be an easy realization because it's going to be like a toxic spiral. You're going to have bad relationships. You're not going to listen. You're going to repeat the same. It's going to be repeat. And then there's going to be like an explosion, you know, and this explosion is going to be your catalyst. Just like my divorce was my catalyst. You're going to have either a relationship explosion, like a divorce. You're going to either have a psychological explosion, like an illness, for example, like anxiety, depression, even a bipolar can be triggered later on, in a sense, with all this toxicity that comes out. And it can be a latent, and then it becomes worse, you know, kind of pathology. Then it is something that's physical, an explosion that's, for example, gout or a stomach ulcer or something extremely bad in your colon, cancer, you know, that's another explosion, or death. Or a suicide. So you either cause someone's death or there's a suicide. So that's the one way of getting back into wholeness, is by experiencing the explosions. So that's the thing about life and us human beings. Life is kind of comfortable until it's not. And we often don't change until staying the same is unbearable. I often say that things in our lives, even in a society where we have struggles with, for example, let's say governmental issues, I often say that we as a nation or nations sometimes won't change until the pain gets too much. And unfortunately, sometimes that pain is even war. That's kind of how humans work. They don't change until the pain gets too uncomfortable.
Wow.
So that's the one way. The other way is because you asked, you can't change your house of origin, right? So what do? Listen to relational feedback. If I got the feedback in my relationships that, you know, you do this and it makes me feel uncomfortable. You do this and I don't like this. You know, you do this, please stop. Then at some stage, I need to take relational accountability of what I put into the space. I want to share a piece of my childhood. I remember my mom writing my father many letters. Please change. Please don't do this. Can you not drink and drive? Can you not do this in front of the children and myself? Can you maybe change? You know, many letters in frustration, anger, and hurt. Many cries for help. Lots of feedback in a beautiful way. Letters are kind and non-confrontational. And despite all the letters and requests for change, my father didn't change.
Sure.
Yes, he didn't. He didn't take the relational feedback for whatever reason. Maybe it was too difficult for him to change. Maybe he thought there was nothing wrong with him. Maybe he didn't have the self-love that so many of us lack. Whatever the reason is, he didn't change. And they got divorced eventually. So my biggest advice for any person standing in a relationship is listen to the relational feedback that you get. Pause, take time out, sit back, reflect on that, and do the work. Change.
How do we distinguish relationship feedback from someone that's projecting onto you?
Sure, that's such an important question. You see, projection is one of the worst defense mechanisms there is. Freud, who was the father of psychology, said that when you use projection as a defense mechanism, it is where you have things inside yourself that you don't like, characteristics that you don't like. You can't sit with them. You can't sit with those characteristics because sitting with that would cause you too much pain. And it's characteristics that are absolutely unbearable and even to a sense disgusting. So what you do is you project it, you give it to somebody else. So often what happens in relationships where people project, you have the person who projects and then you have another person who takes it or the one who leaves it, who doesn't take the projection. People who are prone to project often know who to project on and who not.
Oh, wow.
Because they want to give those characteristics away. So it looks like this. The husband and the wife, they're married. And yes, the husband tells the wife, listen, 5 o'clock we're eating, so we have to go to Johnny's school concert. So the wife has her day-to-day things that she does at home. She's a home caretaker and she raises Johnny. And father goes to work. The thing is, he leaves at about 8:15. He already starts working at 8. He goes to Seattle Coffee for a nice cappuccino. He gets to work eventually at about 9 o'clock. And then he does everything except work. He's on Messenger and on Facebook and he is just having a royal day. He goes for a pub lunch, he drinks a draft and you're not allowed to drink and work. But he does that because he doesn't obey rules. And then he leaves work at about 4 o'clock and he is supposed to work until 4:30 and he leaves at about 4 o'clock. And then he takes the scenic route and I don't know where he stops and he comes home and it's 5 o'clock. And he told his wife, we eat at 5 o'clock because then we go to Johnny's concert. So it's 5 o'clock and the food isn't ready in the sense that mom has to do a few finishing touches. Mash needs to be mashed. Dinner table needs cutlery. But the food is there, it's ready. And then he starts projecting onto her. You are so lazy. I cannot trust you. What do you do all day long? You see, the food isn't even ready. I told you it should be ready at 5 o'clock. You are so useless. You are so selfish. You only think about yourself and your needs. You even didn't get Johnny ready. I can't ask you anything. I'm so disappointed in you. I wish I never married you. You know, you are a piece of what. And then this person goes on and on and on. And you sit there and you experience 4 emotions. Remember, this is where you asked me, how do you know if it is relational feedback and if it's projection? The other person projecting their own awful characteristics on you. This is the feeling of projection. Whenever you sit with these 4 emotions, you know this is projection. 1, you are angry. You feel, what? You know, I can take your head and throw it into what?
I love that.
Yeah, you're so angry. You're like, what? Number 2, you're sad. You're so sad that somebody can call you a piece of what, or can call you selfish, or can call you a cheater, where you've been working all day, you're busy with your child, you did the food, you've got nothing to hide, you don't even have a password on your phone. What's up with this? So you're sad. You're confused. Because how is this possible? What is this person going on? Why am I being said, or why are these things being said to me? Why am I in this situation? You're so confused. And then the last one is there's a bit of truth. There's a bit of guilt. You feel guilty in a sense because, yes, the food isn't ready, you know. If you experience those 4 emotions, and that's anger, sadness, confusion, and guilt, then you know it's not your stuff. That person is projecting their stuff on you.
Wow.
It's them who's selfish and who's useless, or who's a piece of whatever, or who's not working, or who's a liar, or who's sitting at work all day doing nothing. It's their stuff.
Sure.
Don't take it. Because if you take projection, you will die. You will die, whether or not physically or emotionally, but you'll die because, get this, it's already so difficult to work with your own characteristics that you don't like. It's already so difficult to face yourself in the mirror and say, oh, you know what, I did this in the past, and this is the person I am, and this is what I'm capable of. It's already difficult to do that self-reflection in an honest way. How much more to take somebody else's awful characteristics upon yourself and try to work with that? You won't be able to do it. You will suffer. You will die.
You will lose yourself.
You will lose yourself. You will lose your mind. You will be institutionalized if you continue to take a person's projection.
Flip.
Yes?
So I think the heart behind relational feedback will always be for the betterment and for the protection of our relationship, to keep the space between us safe. Projection is the opposite. It's tearing down. It's breaking down. Am I understanding that correctly? 100%.
Well, no, 100%. I couldn't have put it better. It's exactly that. Relational feedback is there to uplift, to empower, to encourage.
Even if it's a difficult topic, even if it's, listen, I don't like what you're doing now.
Exactly.
It makes me feel like this. But the heart behind that feedback is to protect what we have between us.
Absolutely. To protect, to preserve, and to make better. Absolutely. That's relational feedback. You know, projection, that's a defense mechanism which is very much on the borderline of a narcissism, you know.
Sure.
So that's something that's very, very sensitive in a sense. And when you are in a relationship with a narcissist, well, I haven't really heard very good stories. Apart from people who get out of narcissistic relationships who really are better off in a sense. So that's there. We can also park that. This relational feedback is amazing. And I often teach this to couples, is the way they speak to each other.
Yo.
It's not just the way you speak to each other, it's also the way you speak to yourself. Let me ask you this. Okay. So what was the best thing you did today?
This podcast. I just love it.
yeah, this podcast. And prior to that, I mean, it was a few hours in the morning. What was the best thing?
I spent time with the Lord this morning, and that was amazing.
Yeah, wow. That's beautiful. Did you tell yourself, good job. You really did this well today?
I didn't.
You didn't. You see, because we don't. We often don't tell ourselves, you did this well. Or, wow, I'm proud of you for this. And you could have done this, but you did this. So, well, good job, So, relational language starts firstly with the way we speak to ourselves, the way we treat ourselves, the way we respect ourselves, the way we care for ourselves, the way we love ourselves. And I'm not saying self-love in a sense of you think you're so great and awesome and wonderful,
arrogant or whatever.
And arrogant, in a narcissistic sense. That's not self-love. That's a defense mechanism. It's very far apart from each other. Self-love is to say, I really want to preserve this temple. I really want to preserve this beautiful mind that I've been given. I really want to be healthy holistically. God's word says, I wish for you to prosper. Body, soul, and spirit. That's taking reverence in what you have been given. Like really taking accountability, almost not accountability per se, responsibility for what you've been given, body, soul, and spirit in life. And that is the way you speak to yourself. It's so important to not diminish yourself, to not speak badly about yourself, to not say words like, you're so stupid, you should have done this better, or I wish I did this way, or being negative toward yourself. Can you relate in a sense, or not really? We do that in a sense. We criticize ourselves, we blame ourselves, we judge ourselves, just like we criticize, blame, and judge others. We do it first and foremost to ourselves. That's the first thing. Change your relational language, your self-language.
Sure.
Change your
You cannot
self-language.
love someone else if you don't love.
How do you do it?
Yeah.
How do you love someone if you can't love yourself? How do you do that?
Sure. That's coming back again to being whole and finding yourself.
Exactly.
And sure. That's
Exactly.
amazing.
How do you love yourself how do you love somebody if you cannot love yourself? How can you be in a healed, whole relationship if you aren't healed and whole? Again, when you're broken, brokenness looks attractive. So, self-love, in a sense, starts with how we speak towards ourselves. And there's an experiment. You know about this. I think you learned this in one of the workshops. There's a professor in Japan, and he did this experiment with water, where he'd speak to the water in one room saying, you're beautiful, you're great, you're awesome, I love you, playing beautiful classic music. And that water looked like crystals, like snowflakes. The other water in the other room, he said, I hate you, you're awful, you're horrible, you make mistakes, dangerous, and playing this hectic music, right? That water, under a microscope, looks like mud. It's murky. It's filthy. And I'm telling you this because we are more than 70% water. Can you imagine if you tell yourself on a daily basis, you're stupid, you're so clumsy, you're horrible, well, I can't even think what you tell yourself because I'm way past that. I'm very kind to myself. I'm very kind to myself, and I'm very kind to my mind. I know when I make mistakes and I know how to say sorry. And to myself as well. I say sorry to myself often.
Wow.
Even, so for example, last night, I'm busy with this move and I'm relocating to Melkbosstrand, and I'm thinking, I want to sell my furniture so I can have a new start. And, I've got a small beach house there, so I just want to make everything light and white. And I'm thinking, okay, I can sell all of this. Now I'm lying in bed. I'm like, but should I have done this? Should I have done this? And I just realized I'm spending too much time, thinking time on this. I took 3 deep breaths. I told myself, trust yourself and go to sleep.
Wow.
You know, just like a mother would to her child.
Mm.
That's what reparenting is also about. It's like being the best towards yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Amazing.
Yes. So relational language in a relationship where you get relational feedback, it's how you give the feedback. If I'm going to tell you, you're an idiot and I don't like it when you... What? You know, the moment I'm going to go there, you're in your reptilian brain.
Yeah.
You're in that fight, flight, freeze brain. The moment I'm going to start using words like always, never, you never do the dishes. If you're going to never me, I'm going to give you that one example. In 1995, when the Booker was playing the hoo-hoo, and I did the dishes because the Joneses came to visit us. You know, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not going to listen to your heart. I'm not going to be with your heart and realize that what you are trying to tell me is that I need your help around the house. I want the house to look nice. I want to spend more time with you in the kitchen even. I want help. I need assistance. I'm on the verge of a breakdown or a burnout. So the words we use and the way we use our relational language is important.
Wow.
It's the manner in which we give the relational feedback. And it looks something like, I feel angry. Okay, I don't sound very angry now. Let's say sad. I feel sad. I feel sad when I get home and the dishes are still there after I've asked you to do it and you have said that you would. So I feel not only sad, but I also feel that you didn't keep to your word. And that makes me wonder if I'm important to you. Wow. You know?
Wow.
So that's vulnerability, openness. How do you create conflict from that? You're vulnerable, you know?
Yeah.
It's the I feel messages. I feel when you do this and this, not you are this and this.
Sure.
It's very important to own your feelings. I feel threatened when we're in a restaurant and you look at other girls. You know? How's that? For taking ownership. And then be careful. If the response is something like, you are so...
You're crazy.
Yeah, you're crazy. Or you so insecure. Or you so... Then red flags. When you are vulnerable with somebody and you give them a relational feedback in a vulnerable, conscious manner and you get that resistance, then you're going to have to do some work. Then you'll have to come for imago where you get taught by a professional how to cross the bridge to the other person's world, how to make use of your mirror neurons where your empathy lies in your frontal cortex so that you can actually hear the person. Because you didn't hear the person. You are projecting your own stuff then on that person.
Wow.
Yes. Another way to speak fluent relational language is to use words like the story I tell myself, because we just make up stories. We constantly make up stories from the moment we are able to kind of have an idea of life. From early childhood, we make up stories. I promise you, the story about my dad with these Klipdrift, brandy, and these Camel cigarettes, it's a story I made up in my mind as a child. My dad loved me a lot. So we make up stories, and we do this in relationships as well. So then we own the story, and we say, you know what? The story I tell myself, when I feel that you're looking, or I see that you're looking at other girls, the story I tell myself is that you don't want to be with me, and you maybe want to be with somebody else. You know, that's the story I tell myself. So it's difficult then to react unconsciously towards that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Telisia, so let's unpack relational language a bit more. What does the opposite of that look like? I'm confronting my partner with something. I'm using language like always and never. Immediately the defenses jump up, and we are now in a conflict situation.
Absolutely. Just speaking about it kind of makes me go, oh,
Yeah.
we have this body memory of trauma in a sense. You get a physical reaction even when you're in a situation where you're being confronted with non-relational language. When you're being confronted with a language that's, you did this and I hate you and I can't take this and you saw this and this, when there's a lot of projection and when there's a lot of blaming and criticizing and judging, I get this image in front of me of a cat going into a dove's quarter, with lots of doves or birds, and this cat just goes there and the birds and the birds rattle, and they fly away. That's what happens. It's almost like we want to get away. We need to get away. We cannot cope with this. That's the one response. That's the flee response. That's where we need to just get away. We get into our car and we drive away. And sometimes people make accidents when they're in that state. A lot of times people lose their lives because they were in a relational trigger. They were triggered in a situation, they get into their cars, they drive, they either make an accident or they drive in front of somebody making an accident, or whatever way it happens, or they cause the death of somebody, a pedestrian. This is real. This is the impact that unconscious communication has on our lives, because we don't think, we just react. We don't respond, we react. So that's the one thing. It looks like a cat in a dove's quarter. Okay? Flee. Then you get fight. This is the boxing match. This is where I tell you this and you tell me this and I tell you this and you tell me this, and it's the one wants to be better than the other one, and you say a lot of words that you cannot get back. From an early childhood, I heard this story, and in my unconscious relationships, even though I was aware of it, I didn't do it. I didn't practice it because I didn't do the work. I was not whole, So I knew about this, however, I didn't practice it. And that's the story about the feathers that's in a cushion. A cushion, feather cushion? Those nice pillows. When you open the pillow, when you cut it open and you let all those feathers go out in the wind, are you going to be able to retrieve the feathers back?
Sure.
You won't. And that's what happens when you're in a fight mode. You say things that you later regret, and you can't really get all the things that you've said back. You can't really take it back.
Yeah.
You can later on say, listen, there's something I want to take out of the space. However, that is conscious repairing. You need a partner who's then able to hold space for you when you repair. So that's fight. And the other one is freeze, where you just, you're being confronted with this, you never do this, you always do this kind of thing, or you're being projected on, you can't do anything because your infantile defense was to freeze. So you either just ignore it as if it's not there. As children, we often learn a defense mechanism of just ignoring it, pretending it's not there. Mommy and daddy has a fight, and then you hear it, but you kind of ignore it. You just go downstairs, you go to the bathroom, and you go back up to your room or something. You learn from an early age it's better to just ignore. Don't engage. Don't go there. Freeze. Block out. And that is an infantile, a childhood defense mechanism. And let me put it this way. When you're a child, defense mechanisms are wonderful. They, in certain situations, keep us alive. When you're an adult and you use the very same defense mechanism as you did as a child, it's going to prevent you from living. You're not going to have your best life. because childhood defense mechanisms is not appropriate for adulthood. So that young boy, for example, that hears his mom and dad fighting in his room, he goes down, he kind of ignores it, he doesn't see it, he doesn't make a fuss, he goes to the bathroom, goes back up, he kind of gets the cue, freeze, ignore, don't acknowledge that. As a child, that's fine, because it's grown-up things. As an adult, if he does the same thing and he ignores his wife when she tries to have an engaged conversation with him, when he freezes and ignores the conflict when there's conflict, he'll have a destructive relationship. Destructive, toxic, because it's a defense mechanism that's not conducive in a relationship. What's conducive in a relationship is, listen, we need to have a chat. And the chat is about your behavior and how I feel about it, However, we need to be whole ourselves to be able to have such a conversation.
Sure.
The other defense mechanism is fawn. So we've got freeze, which we just discussed, and then we had fight, and before that is flee. The other one is fawn or fawning. It's this little deer animal. A fawning response is where you want to keep everybody happy. You want to be a people pleaser. So now you're in a relationship. You most probably got messages as a child that you're not good enough. You shouldn't, be here, kind of shame messages in the area of your very existence. And then you are in a relationship with a partner, for example, who doesn't have relational language and who projects on you. And then instead of standing up for yourself, you'll start to people please. Yeah. Okay, you're right. I'm wrong. Please, how can I fix this? I know I did that. In my, I want to call it previous life. Before I did the work, I take so much responsibility and blame for this relationship. I would even write emails and say, I'm so sorry. How can I fix this?
Wow.
I will. You were so good for me. Oh, goodness. Took everything upon myself and became this defense mechanism that I was in a sense. Does that make sense? Is it?
So, you put all that projection upon yourself and just to keep peace.
Yes, to be the peacemaker in a sense. That's not necessarily what I did as a peacemaker per se.
Yeah.
However, there were certain circumstances where I kind of belittled myself so that I can just not be in this conflictual situation. And that is a fawning response. That's a defense mechanism. You kind of, wave the white flag, even though you know that what's going on is not right and that you are being manipulated or gaslighted or whatever. Yeah.
So, obviously, we've talked about language in relationship now, Telise, and it's so important to learn how to communicate in a relationship, especially, if the heart is to listen here, we want to do this, we want to stay married forever.
Yes.
I am for you, I am not against you.
Yes.
So we have to change the way how we communicate. We should choose the words very, very carefully that we use to communicate how we feel, how our partner makes us feel, when we give relationship feedback.
Yes.
Where does these things come from? Where does these triggers come from? I think you mentioned earlier about the old brain.
Yes. Well, remember the reptilian brain it's the old brain. It's the one that we are triggered in, the fight, flight, freeze brain. It's the primitive brain. And that is the I want to call it, it is trauma response. It's the trauma response that we acquired when we were growing up.
Wow.
Yes. Just to make a point on what you said, yes, it is important to have conscious communication in a relationship. And in a sense, the only way we can have that is when we ourselves are whole.
You're right.
If we healed and if we whole, then we will be able to have a mature conversation.
Mm.
And that is where I often say, change begins with me.
Wow.
So even in a relationship, in a marriage where we say, yes, I choose us, because definitely I choose us, you choose yourself for us. You choose your wholeness. You choose your health, body, soul, spirit, your holistic health. You choose that for the greater good of the relationship. So I want to inspire and really implore, in a sense, on every individual out there. When you're in a marriage, do the work yourself. Don't wait for your partner. Wait for him or her to change. I can tell you, you may wait a very long time. That person may never change. Take relational accountability. Start to do the work yourself, and soon your partner will catch up. That is the one thing we need to be whole. The other question you said, as we were speaking about the old brain, right? Yes, we learn these defense mechanisms and the triggers we get from childhood. So I'm triggered because my inner child is triggered. I'm triggered because my inner child is experiencing uncomfortableness. I'm triggered because my inner child feels rejected, feels abandoned, feels frightened, feels shame, feels guilt. It's our inner children that are hurt. And then what happens in mature, well, not mature, I take mature out of the space at the moment, the word, in unconscious relationships, then our inner children come out to play.
Wow.
When there's a fight, remember I spoke about the cats and the pigeons, isn't doves? The cat and the pigeons and the boxing, the fighting match and the I'm so sorry I did this. You so right, I'm so wrong. That's the inner child. That's the inner child that goes into that infantile defense mechanism. Why? Because it's the inner child that's hurt.
Wow.
When I felt abandoned in my relationships, or when I felt rejected, it wasn't me. It wasn't not advocate, responsible citizen in a sense, who's, capable of earning an income and the adult functioning well person. It was the inner child. It was my small Telisia that told herself the story that daddy doesn't love you. And then in relationships that comes out.
Wow.
It's the inner children that come out to play.
So in a sense, we have a responsibility to become aware of each other's childhood trauma.
Yes.
And to be sensitive to in the language that we use, and also how we treat our partner, because we know now that, listen, these are triggers.
Yes.
So my question to you is, would we ever heal from those childhood traumas? You said earlier that we heal in relationship.
Yes. I love what you said. I love what you said, that we need to heal our inner child. The question, can we ever heal our childhood trauma? Can we ever heal our inner child? And that we heal in relationships? Yes. That's why we have something like Imago, a dialogue where we have a parent-child dialogue, where if we're in a relationship and it's a safe space and an issue comes up from childhood, then we can have a relational chat, a dialogue, where you can be for a moment my dad. And I can tell you as then my dad. It's role play. It's what we do in psychology a lot. I learned this in my psychology degree where we did practicals on role play. So you'll role play that you're my dad. And then I can tell you that this is what I experienced growing up with you. And that, it's powerful.
Sure.
It's powerful work. And
it invites your partner into your world.
Yes. Yes. It invites him into your world and he becomes your healing agent.
Wow.
Where your dad couldn't do it, your partner does it. And that's conscious healing in a relationship. Then, for example, with me, my catalyst of healing was either in my marriage. However, my ex didn't want to do Imago. So I went and I did Imago by myself. I did the Imago singles. I became an Imago professional facilitator. I did the training, all of that. And I had to do the healing outside of a relationship. I haven't had a relationship since then. So since my divorce, outside the relationship, I had to find my healing. And it is much more challenging because listen, I'm not that triggered, I'm not
Exactly.
that triggered.
Yeah.
We get triggered in a relationship.
Yes.
So I often tell Dr. Cornell, I'm like, my soon to be husband, I'm waiting for that because then the real work is going to start. Then the proof is going to be in the pudding,
Yes.
So I'm hoping. Hey?
No, you sort of can only do the work up to a point.
Yes.
And then the real work starts in relationship.
Then the real work starts in relationships because I don't trigger myself, So when you then get into a relationship, meet someone who speaks your language. I often say to clients who come to see me who who are prone to falling in love with the wrong kind of guy or the wrong kind of girl. You can clearly see this person is much higher than what they falling in love with, if I can put it that way, but they don't see their worth yet. So then I often tell them, you need to vibrate on a different level. And when you vibrate in a high consciousness on a different level, you're not going to be attracted to this low vibrational person.
Oh,
you're not.
Yeah.
Because again, broken looks attractive when you're broken. When you healed, oh my goodness, broken looks like, sorry, dude or dudess, drive past. You're not going to come and park your car here. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not welcome here. In fact, you won't even look at it. You won't really even look at that brokenness. Once you did the work and once you healed, your standard of relational partnership changes. Once you healed, you won't fall in love with that low vibrational energy. You won't. You won't. You won't do that to yourself ever again.
Yeah.
So that's so important for every person, even the individual work. Importantly, the individual work. Heal your inner child. Go back to that young boy or young girl. Give her all the love and attention she or he needed. Some people have very, very traumatized childhood and they need to do the inner work with a therapist, with a professional, because it can be very re-traumatizing going back to that young boy or girl that's been beaten, that's been raped, that's been molested, that's been said how bad you are, that's really been abused, been neglected. That is traumatic and it's hard work. I know with the patients that I work with, where we do the work in the clinics, some of those patients, they struggle to just meet their inner child, not even to really go and heal the inner child. They can't even see or meet or experience that inner child. So there's this disconnection because the trauma is just so severe. And you need a professional. You need a professional, especially if you've had hectic trauma. And you know what? The thing with trauma is it can be hectic for one person and it can be not so hectic for another person. Trauma is trauma. My dad, the story I told myself when I experienced that my dad didn't want me to sit on his lap, that's traumatic for any little girl, That's traumatic. A person whose dad beat them up and sexually abused them, that's traumatic, Trauma is trauma.
Wow.
Yes.
Telisia, tell me, I know there are many people stuck in a rut when it comes to their marriages. Connection is lost. Many people might be willing to do the work, self-work, and to heal themselves. But what if you are stuck in a marriage and your partner is just not willing to do the work? There's projection. The answer cannot be to leave and to remarry again.
No. Sure. What a very important question. What do you do when you're in a relationship and your partner doesn't want to change? Your partner doesn't want to do the work. Well, you need to do the work first. You need to do the work. And even if you need to do it constantly for years, you need to do the work. I often give this advice to couples who want to get a divorce, because I'm also a family mediator, a divorce mediator. So I practice as that. So I can mediate divorces in a sense and do the parenting plans and so forth. When I see them, I say, first do the work. Get back to your new brain, to this neocortex, to the frontal lobe, here where you can feel empathy, here in the frontal part of your brain where you can experience empathy, where you can grow, where you can be rational, where you can know to respond instead of reacting and so forth. So that when you make the decision to divorce, that it's from a part that's healed. Now, when you confronted with a partner that doesn't want to do the work, maybe they continue to be lazy and they don't want to find a job and they beat you. Well, abuse is a very clear exit for divorce. You know, for you can exit based on abuse. And even some people stay in abusive relationship and pray for their partners to change. That's the choice they make, you know. So maybe you're sitting with a partner who has severe pathology. That's also an interesting question. What do you do with a partner who has pathology, who has a personality disorder, who is a narcissistic, or who is a narcissist, or who is a psychopath? Or, you know, psychopaths make the best CEOs and judges and entrepreneurs in the world. They do. They are very, very good in their trade. Relationship-wise, when you're at the hand of a psychopath, I don't know if he or she is going to want to do the work because they don't think there's anything wrong with them. Same with a narcissist. Also, when you were in a relationship with somebody that, for example, has bipolar disorder, and that person is not doing the work, and not only biomedically, not only medication, but doing the work, being mindful, seeing coaches, seeing therapists, you know, like really doing the work, then you're going to ask yourself important questions. Because one, a personality disorder is very difficult to treat. You can't treat it biomedically. The person needs to admit, like an alcoholic, say, listen, I'm so-and-so and I'm an alcoholic, you know. They need to admit there's something severely wrong with them. Even pathological liars, they don't have a clue that they're doing what they're doing. They don't know that they're lying. Dissociative disorders, people who live double lives. They have this girl and they have this girl in the same time, you know. That is an extreme red flag to consider. I have one client who came to see me. Her husband decided to get a divorce. And when she started speaking about the relationship, I thought, thank goodness. I'm sorry. I know I choose us. I know we choose the marriage. But this man wanted her to start chatting with guys on Telegram and on Tinder. And then in the evening, he would want to know, so who did you speak to, and show me their photos and what?
Oh, my word.
You see what I'm saying? So yes, we choose the relationship. We choose marriage. Monet, my heart and your heart is the same.
Absolutely.
I'm there. I'm like constantly, that's my life mission. That's my life force, is to keep relationships going, is to have people have healthy relationships with themselves and with their partners. You know, I get emotional and excited about it because that's my absolute joy in life. My path of joy is to see people flourish in relationship with themselves and with their partners. However, when you're in a relationship with a pathological liar, with a narcissist, with somebody who has borderline personality disorder, with somebody who is a psychopath, you know, there's lots of things and personality traits out there. And that person doesn't want to do the work. And that person doesn't go for coaching and counseling. And that person is oblivious. And that person continues with their double life, or with their lies, or with their projection. If that person continues living in such a severe pathological state, then it's going to be challenging, Monet, to say, I choose us. Then it's going to be challenging to say, let's stay together until we're old and grey.
Yeah. So your advice is do the work.
Yes.
Do whatever you can. Don't just give up.
Yes.
But at a certain point in time, you will have to ask certain questions,
Yes.
especially if it's if it becomes unsafe.
Yes.
When your family is being impacted by that,
Yes.
your children, your
Yes.
finances.
Your finances. How many people get involved with somebody and then they just pay out money to them in the relationship and then end up being like, whoa, you took my last money. You took my last money and you don't have the audacity to own up, and realize that was abuse. That's financial abuse, right? And we do a lot of things for the sake of love and in the name of love. When we're unconscious, we're going to find ourselves in predicaments. We're going to find ourselves in rotten situations. Like, for example, you'll be phoned by somebody who says, listen, where were you? Were you with my husband, or you'll be like, well, somebody phoned you and says, listen, this guy was with me. That is a red flag. You don't want to be in a situation like that. You're worth more than that. Or you'll be in bar fights, you'll be in a situations where there's this girl sitting there and this guy, and then there's a bar fight or something. You don't want to be associated with that, for example. You're going to be in situations where you maybe don't have money because you had to pay out money to this person. You're going to be in situations where co-workers are going to gossip about you because the fact of the matter is you have this tumultuous relationship style, and your marriage is going haywire and everybody is the problem except you. There's going to be a day where, like you say, you'll have to ask questions if you're at the hand of that. The fact of the matter is there's two options. Choose the third. I often say that. Out of the two options, choose the third. Option one is divorce. Divorce, in any situation, not only when you're met with a partner who's maybe pathological or so. Divorce. The second option is stay. I don't know how long you're going to be able to stay. You're going to find yourself in those predicaments like I mentioned, and way more. It's going to look filthy. It's going to be toxic. It's going to be disgusting. It's going to be destructive. Look, and I've heard stories, right? Especially when there's alcohol involved and especially when there's egos involved and stuff. Then it's rough and the children suffer. And then there's the third option, and that's do the work. Become conscious. Even if you have to go and see a coach or a psychologist in secret, if it's unsafe for you to tell that to your partner, go and do the work. Find somebody to help you. Heal your inner child. Find yourself. Find your authentic self. Go back to your authentic self. And then from that place, make a decision. From that place, ask the question, am I going to allow this in my life or not? And then from that place, you can also give ultimatums. You can say, listen, I've done the work and I expect you to also take relational accountability and do the work.
Amazing.
Yes.
Wow, that is profound, Telisia. Tell me, I want to chat to you about addictions in marriage and the impact that has on marriages. I mean, many people go into a marriage knowing that the partner, he drinks a lot, but it's okay. It's manageable.
Yes.
He's got a gamble. He gambles a bit. He watches pornography every now and then. Get married, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years later, things get out of hand. How do we manage addictions in marriage?
Become aware. Become aware that an addiction is a dependency. An addiction is a behavior. It's something we do to try and fill the void. To try and become whole again. When we grew up as children, we were whole. Then we got these messages. You too much, you too loud, you're not good at sport, you're not so intelligent, your ears are too big, your feet's too crooked, you don't have you don't have a good body, or you think weird, or don't speak so much, whatever. You get these shame messages. And that ultimately ends up with the fact that you feel void. You have this void in you. You've got this hole in you because you've been projected on so many things. You've been chipped away. And then you try desperately with things from outside, like we said earlier, to try and fill the void. And that's addiction. So you get this addiction where you're dependent on something, and then you kind of become codependent on the other person's addiction. So it looks like this. Codependency is where I'm prone to drinking a lot, say for example, and then I meet somebody who's also prone to drinking a lot, alcohol. And then whenever this person kind of tries to get better, then I make up a story to get us to drink again, or I start a fight because then I know they will be drinking. So I kind of enable this person to continue drinking, even though my partner said, I'm not going to drink because I'm a CA and I have to work a lot, so in the mornings I can't be hungover. For the person with the codependency on that person's dependency, so you almost in a sense dependent on the person staying dependent on alcohol. You don't want that person to come right. You don't want them to heal. So you fabricate these fights and you fabricate these instances and make nice parties and everything to keep that person, enable that person to stay addicted. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Why do we do that?
Because we're scared. Because we're scared that if that person gets healed, they won't choose us anymore. Yeah. We're scared because if that person gets healed, we maybe won't be good enough. We're scared because if that person gets healed, then maybe we're out of the equation because we don't love ourselves, we don't care for ourselves, we diminish ourselves, we don't see our own worth, we don't realize that we are actually fearfully and wonderfully made, and we have everything inside of us if we just go back and do the work and find ourselves. So we stay in codependent relationships because we are sick in a sense. We are addicted in a sense. We are not aware. We saw this codependency repeating itself in our families most probably, Maybe you saw that your mom and dad was in a relationship and they were codependent on each other, As long as dad does what he does, then mom's off the hook in a sense, That's some sort of a codependent relationship. We become codependent on people. We are addicted to relationships. That's why there's so many people going on dating apps the moment they get divorced. We're addicted to people. We need external validation. We need people to make us feel good about ourselves. I'm sorry, you're going to be very, very disappointed in life if you want to find somebody who's going to give you approval. Very, very disappointed. The only approval you can get is that of yourself and God. You don't even really need God's approval because he just loves you for who you are, You really just need your own approval, to be honest. And we codependent because we fear. We fear that we will be left alone. And addiction works like that. It starts off where you feel guilty. Maybe you feel guilty that you did something wrong. As a young boy, maybe you were being raised where you were made very attentive of the fact that you shouldn't make mistakes. So when you make a mistake, you feel guilty that you made a mistake. Later, you don't feel guilty that you did something wrong. Later, it develops into shame. You feel there's something wrong with me. You feel shame. You really feel there's something wrong with me. It's not just that I did something wrong. There's something wrong with me. And there is where fear is born. Then you are so fearful that somebody's going to leave you. You're so fearful that you're going to be alone. You're so fearful that you're not loved. And addiction starts there. Codependency starts there. Whenever you are dependent on anything else to make you feel whole, to make you feel good, then you know you are now bordering on codependency. So with this move to Melkbosstrand, I'm thinking, well, I'm going to paint some of this stuff, and I'm already seeing how I'm playing music, and I'm painting some of my furniture. And then in my mind's eye, I had this vision of painting and having a glass of wine. And then just for a moment there, I thought, no, I'm not even going to drink wine. I'll have sparkling water, And that to me is profound, because in that moment I realized, Telisia, you really don't need anything anymore to be in your essence. That to me was big, because in my life when I was unconscious and before I did the work, I needed alcohol to feel better. I was an advocate. You can imagine. I went to court, then I had lots of wine. And I made a fair share of trouble, when I had wine in my head. Then I lost my head. But the fact of the matter is, I don't need that anymore, because I became aware and I did the work. And I just realized that I really don't need anything else apart from myself, and knowing that I'm healthy and healed. And that's profound. And if you can reach that level of self-love, self-trust, boundaries for yourself, for other people, empathy for yourself, growth, change, if you can reach that level of change, then you can have good relationships. I'm not saying I'm like, who can I say, Gandhi or some sort of a guru or a Buddha or something, not Buddha. You know what I'm trying to say, somebody that's enlightened. But to a certain degree, I am enlightened, because I was in the dark. And now I'm in the light because I did the work. And that's my wish for everyone. I'm not perfect, definitely, far from it. However, I know where I was, out and in relationships, and I know where I am. Not because I'm great, not at all, because I did the work. Like we started off this podcast, change is difficult. You need to sit with your pain. You need to be uncomfortable. You need to be alone. There were nights where I cried and I said, wow, people are having braais and I'm smelling the braai and I'm alone on a Friday night. It became to a certain degree unbearable, until I realized, but it's in that unbearableness where I can sit with myself and become my authentic self, where I have a yardstick, a measuring stick for what I'll allow into my life. So now I'll say, well, if I meet you, you'll have to compete with my solitude. And my solitude is priceless. It's beautiful. It's free. It's peaceful. It's relaxed. It's joyful. It's funny. It's quirky. It's awesome. It's safe, because I can be safe with myself. I can be free with myself. I can be quirky. I can be funny. I can go on adventures with myself. And that's what I wish for every person. If you are still young, do the work by yourself, become your authentic self. And again, there's no excuse in this day and age not to be your truest authentic self. If you are married or in a relationship, do the work. Get a life coach. Watch podcasts like this. Invest in self-help books. Invest in holistic health, Fill the void from within. And when you're a couple and you can do the work together, so much better. So amazing. So amazing.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Telisia, I think many people might say that, Telisia, you have the luxury of choosing. I am in a marriage. I'm willing to do the work, but my partner is stuck with a addiction. What am I to do? And it's starting to affect our marriage. It's starting to affect our finances, our children. Where do I draw the line and boundary? How do I handle that?
It's a very good question. Ultimately, I think it depends on the severity of the addiction.
I mean, that can be addiction or abuse, verbal
Addiction
abuse,
or abuse,
physical
yes.
abuse.
Yes. Look, for me, abuse is an exit. Go.
No, for sure.
Go. You know what? If
It
he
will
has,
never be okay.
it will never be okay. It will never be okay. And for that, a volatile relationship. Once you start to become violent, and the other person as well, that's actually just the proof is on the wall. You know, the writing, as they say, is on the wall.
Mm.
So abuse is out. That's a clear, even in Imago, abuse is a no-no. You can't do the work when there's abuse. You also can't do the work when there's threats of, I'm going to leave you. I'm going to divorce you. You know, there's the slightest bit of conflict. Then it's like, I regret ever marrying you. You know, like, I wish I never had this ring, or you take off your ring. You know, that's abusive. Or you are the person I should never have gotten involved with. Or, you know, if you start using those words in a marriage and threatening with divorce, I want to say, sure, that's abusive. That's, in a sense, very much grounds for saying, listen, I'm going to, do the work first before you call, you know, make a call on that. But that's abuse. Addiction is challenging because addiction comes from our childhood. We also learned from childhood how to cope, how to keep things secret, especially addictions, certain addictions. We use it as a defense mechanism. Maybe we saw it. Maybe we grew up in a house where the household of origin, our parents' home or caregivers' home, was rotten with addiction, you know. Then we kind of think it's normal. It's okay to do this, you know. And then the question is, when do I pull the plug? Is that what you're asking? What do I do? What do I do when I have a partner that's...
I'm willing to do the work, but I've got a partner that's addicted to something. And it's affecting our marriage.
I have a client like that. And they went and they got a specialist in addictions, and they have that person as their accountability partner. So it's possible if that person wants to change. But Monet, if the person doesn't want to change and that addiction is threatening my holistic health, in the sense that I'm not even going to church anymore because I need to take care of you because you're drunk on a Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, or if it's threatening my soul,
your safety,
safety, my children, my finances, maybe this gambling is just really, we now facing the possibility of losing our house, then there's a very big part of me that says, if you are going to get hurt in that relationship to a point where you're not going to be able to repair, then it's maybe a good idea to call it quits, you know. And
it's sad to say, but at the end of the day, if people are not willing to do the work and to change, to accept the fact that, listen, what I'm doing is destructive to our family, our marriage.
Yes.
Certain boundaries need to be made.
Yes, certain calls need to be made, you know. The fact of the matter is, if you then do get divorced from the addict, please, don't go around to say, I divorced him or her because she was an addict or he was an addict. Just do the work then.
Yourself.
Yes, because if you're going to blame the person and say, well, you know, I got divorced because this person is an addict, then I'm like, you know, there was a part in you that was attractive and attracted to this addiction. So what part in you looked attractive for that person? So it comes back to you again. Change begins with me. Remember, if you fall in love with somebody that's a narcissist, okay, then you have to ask yourself, what part in me needed that validation from that person? What part in me found the love bombing and the lies okay? What part in me was okay with all the projection? What part in me allowed myself to go to that cliff and almost fall down? You know, what part in me was driven and attracted to that? Because that's a broken part in you that needs to be healed. So again, if you decide to exit the marriage, don't for one moment go and say it's because he or she is this or that. That's the biggest mistake you can make. And not only the biggest mistake, you stealing from yourself very beautiful opportunity to grow and heal and to become your best version, to become your authentic self. Because if you continuously blame other people and say it's because she is like this or he is like this and because this one is like this and this one is like this, where are you going to grow? Where are you going to sit back and reflect and think, sure, why is this looking like this? Maybe you've been in 3 relationships that look the same. Then you have to ask yourself, so who's the common denominator? Because that's what people do. Some people don't take relational accountability and they're in the one relationship and the next, and it's always the other person's fault. And you know what? They're in relationships with people who are great, beautiful, ambitious, stunning, influential people. And then it's always the other person's fault. And that's childish, to say the least. You know, because it's only a child. Children don't really take responsibility. You know, if mom comes and she's like, who did this? It wasn't me. You know, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
And that is a childhood response.
Wow.
Not taking responsibility is childish. It's an infantile defense mechanism.
Yeah.
It's what we call in psychology, it's a denial. Freud also spoke about denial as a defense mechanism, to deny that you did something wrong, to deny the other person's reality, to say that the other person is 100% wrong, you know, as if to make yourself 100% right. That's denial. That's a defense mechanism, and it's childish. And it's difficult to be in a relationship with somebody like that. But besides that, getting back to the point, really, when you then do get divorced, don't put yourself on a pedestal and say, well, I divorced this person because he or she is that. And you know, it's often what I hear in conversations and in my coaching practice. He did this. She did this.
Ooh.
You know, when you go on a date with somebody and you start talking, just listen clearly or carefully to what that person is saying about their ex. Wow, what a reflection on them. What a reflection on them.
Yeah.
I actually thought about this. Was it yesterday? I spoke to somebody, I can't remember, but they said something about their partners. They actually said something like, yeah, but he did this and this. And I thought, wow, I'm so excited to meet my soon-to-be husband, to be able to say, you know what, in my relationships in the past, I did this.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
that is so mature. That's so, to me, that's so grown up. To me, that's like owning up. That's like saying, you know what, I wasn't healed. I wasn't whole. I was in pain. I was in search of myself. And unfortunately, there were people, or fortunately, I'm very, very, very grateful for my exes because they put me on the path to my greatest life and journey. So I'm very thankful to them. I don't have a word to say about what their purpose in my life was because it was so beautifully worked out. It was so necessary for them to be there so that I can grow and heal. So I'm looking forward to a life in relationships with people. I'm looking forward to a world where people take relationships seriously and they own up and they say, you know what, this is what I did and this is what I learned and this is what I contributed and I'm looking forward to having a new kind of relationship. Instead of sitting there and saying, I had to get divorced from her because she was so crazy or she was so addictive, she had addiction or he was so abusive or he was so that. No, because you see what we do is we project.
Yes.
We will most probably tell that person, our new person, exactly what it is that's in us. You know, he or she was so this and this. How true is it about you? How true is it about you? I often say this in my workshops and people love it and hate it. You spot it, you got it. You spot it, you got it. If you call me out on I am so selfish and manipulative and crazy and destructive and an in-chipper, I chip in, or I'm so reckless, or I'm so whatever, a liar. You know what? You spot it, you got it.
Wow. Yes, see. Telisia, mind-blowing stuff.
I know, right?
Listen here. Okay, so what are we saying? We are saying if you are in such a marriage don't just give up. Okay, don't just run away from your partner. Do the work yourself. Start by doing the work yourself.
Yes.
Before you try to change your partner or to try and get them out of the addiction, you start the work.
Yes.
I want to talk about a subject that I know is very controversial, narcissism.
Sure.
It impacts a lot of marriages.
Yes.
I've seen it online. Many people complain about this. People
Yes.
not being able to take responsibility, not being aware. Can we unpack that for a moment, the impact that has on marriages?
Yes. Narcissism is abusive. So remember we said that if you're in an abusive relationship, then do the work and most probably you're going to not be there. However, there's a part of me that still believes that even the narcissist, if he or she has the safe space and the platform to realize what they are doing, will be able to at least become aware of what they're doing wrong. There's research showing that narcissists don't really change their behavior. They become aware of their behavior. Like they become aware of the fact that now I'm going to say this or do this to manipulate or to gaslight. So that it's almost as if they have an observant effect where they can observe themselves outside of themselves and realize, sure, that behavior is now going into my old behavior of narcissism. That's somebody that wants to change. It's almost like an addict. So for example, with me, I used to drink a lot of wine and I smoked menthol cigarettes. You know, give me a chance. Just give me a chance. I'm not shy to admit this. I am just transparent. I'm definitely no angel. You know, I know when that can be triggered. So there's this story in psychology that we learned about the hole in the ground. So for example, that hole is addiction. Drinking wine, for example, in my case, or smoking, or the narcissist, manipulating, lying pathologically, gaslighting, projecting. Okay, that's the black hole. Now, for example, when you're aware of it and you walk, you sometimes fall into that hole again. Then you say, okay, wait, let me become aware of the hole. Let me observe the hole and let me walk a little bit around the hole, and then you watch it and then you fall into the hole again. Even though you're aware. This is how change works. Then there comes a day when you're like, okay, I'm going to take another path and I'm going to walk around it. I'm going to change my behavior. I'm going to change things. And sometimes even taking the different road, you fall into the hole again. So I say take an airplane altogether. So you don't even walk close to the hole. What does that mean in relationship or in relation to what we spoke about, the narcissism or addiction? That means do things completely different. Become aware. If I'm triggered, I'm not going to drive past the Tops liquor store, you know. If I'm triggered or if I don't feel emotionally well, I'm not going to drink wine because I know, I can fall into that hole again, you know. If you're a narcissist and you're in a relationship and you know that there is a situation that's going to get you in a situation where you're going to have to lie to one party, or you're going to now say something that's gaslighting, that's the whole, become aware of it. Change altogether. Then in that moment, get an accountability partner. Phone somebody. It's the same with AA. I don't get this, you know. We have the AA where you have an accountability partner, or is it an accountability partner? What do you call a sponsor? Is it a sponsor? I think you call it a sponsor. Where you have that person that you can phone and say, listen, now I've got this urge to drink. So narcissism should actually be handled the same way, because it's abusive. It's a personality disorder. The only thing is, an alcoholic is much more prone to say, I'm so-and-so and I have a problem. I'm an alcoholic. A narcissist doesn't think he or she has a problem.
Yeah.
They really don't think they have a problem. They also really don't see that they are pathological liars. On my way here, I quickly had to speak to somebody about the furniture stuff that I'm now selling. And I mixed up the two stories. I told the one guy he lives far. And then when I put the phone down, I'm like, he doesn't live far, it's long story. I told a lie and I felt so bad. I stopped you and I thought, sure, but that wasn't the true case, and it's something so small. It's something, it has no effect or impact or anything, Pathological liars and narcissists would stop and not even blink an eye because they have no self-reflection. They don't have the ability to be accountable for what they do. So having a narcissist as a partner in a marriage, maybe you're going to do the work and do the work and do the work for years. Maybe eventually it'll feel safe for them to reflect. Remember, narcissism is a defense mechanism. Freud also called it, it's a defense mechanism. It's, I'm not sure if it was Freud who called it. However, it's a grandiosity. I'm better than you. It's a, big talk, bragging. It's disowning the other person's reality. It's also a sense of a denial. That's where Freud spoke about the denial, because you deny the other person's reality.
Wow.
Gaslighting. So you are creating this tumultuation, and then you call the other person, you are so tumultuous, you are so toxic, you are so useless, whatever, you are so sick, whereas it's the person, so it's that projection. So you deny their reality. Gaslighting is horrible. So I don't know really how you go about this if you aren't healed. Even healed, it's a challenge. Even being healed and whole, it's going to be a challenge to stay with the quintessential narcissist. Not a person who has narcissistic tendencies. We all have. Kohout, a psychologist, spoke about personalities, and he said that we're all narcissists.
Wow.
He said, from a very young age, we are born a narcissist, because that's my mom and I want my mom and I only want my mom and that's my mom and that's my milk and that's mine. So we all innately a bit of a narcissist. It's when it becomes pathological.
Sure.
I'm a bit narcissistic at times, when I maybe take a selfie and I think, oh, jy weet, mooi, I look mooi or something. Maybe that's a bit of a narcissist. In this day and age, there's a lot of words being thrown around. He's a narcissist, she's a narcissist. And I get that often, especially in the mediation and with divorces. Now, I want a divorce because he's a narcissist. You guys, we can't just throw that word around.
Sure.
A narcissist, a quintessential, your typical blueprint narcissist, is a very dangerous person. Because narcissism as a pathology, as a personality disorder, was born from a very young age as a defense mechanism to deny what's going on with you.
Yeah.
Because of severe trauma, because of severe abuse. What can a child do other than disassociate?
Yeah.
What can a child do other than deny this existence, deny that this trauma is happening to me? What can a child do other than then start to lie? I'm not at all talking narcissism right. I'm not saying now I'm pro narcissism and it's okay because it comes from childhood trauma. I want to say that to emphasize how dangerous it is when you're really involved in a narcissistic relationship. People die. Whether it's psychologically or physically, emotionally they die. Because the narcissist has no tendency, desire, inclination, urge to change, to be better, to stop his or her way. They don't have insight. They actually, their growth, their emotional growth was stomped in childhood. There's a part of our brain which we call in our frontal lobe, our prefrontal cortex, that's called the mirror neurons. And studies have shown that in the mirror neurons is where we can experience empathy. So I can only really see your world and understand your world when I use my mirror neurons. it's the same neurons that, if I start to yawn, you'll start to yawn, because we mirror each other. Or when we're on a date and I'll sit like this with my hand and I'll look into your eyes, you'll also sit with your hand soon enough in the same mimicking position, right? So those mirror neurons that's in the frontal cortex, in severe traumatized children, that part of the brain stops growing.
Wow.
Literally, their brain looks different. They don't have empathy. Then you get what we call the dark empaths. Those are people who it looks like they have empathy. They can cry at a whim, when there's something that, they can cry. However, they can never put themselves in another person's shoes, in the sense of what they do to other people and how their reactions, their lies, their abuse affects the other person. They just don't have the ability to empathize. Empathy is when you put yourself in the other person's shoes. So say there's pathological lying, or the narcissist is abusive, or the narcissist gaslights, or the narcissist has these severe tendencies to have multiple relationships, then they don't sit like I did in front of the studio this morning and think, "Ooh, that wasn't really, that was a lie. It's not the guy living far; it's the other guy that can't pick up the furniture." Even though I just made a mistake or told a lie, I feel bad about it. A narcissist has that not at all.
Wow.
So how do you then stay in a relationship with such a person? Not sure. You'll have to do the work, because I promise you, if you don't do the work, you're going to be here in your old brain, in your reptilian brain. You're going to be in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. You're not going to be your authentic self. You're going to be like so many people who apologize and take blame and diminish. I know of a person who there was almost nothing left of her. Wow. She, after her marriage with a narcissist, had to rebuild herself completely.
Wow.
And she's still scared to sometimes speak or just be. Healing from narcissism, it's tough. It takes long. It takes a long time, because for so long your reality has been denied that you wonder,
is the problem with me?
Is the problem with me? Do I exist? Did this happen? So it's dangerous. It's extremely dangerous, because it comes from the dangerous situation that child was in. So Gabor Maté speaks about pathology and that we should actually normalize pathology. He says, he wrote a book, The Myth of Normal. And he said that pathology is trauma. And we know this. However, it's as if he goes a bit further to say we can rehabilitate pathology. We can, rehabilitate the personality disorder. There's Bessel van der Kolk, who had a severe borderline personality patient who used to inject things in herself and put a glass in herself and hurt herself. The self-harm was tremendous. She was a quintessential borderline personality. And he gave her the space, 2 years, warm, available, in a clinic with yoga and mindfulness and all of that. And she rehabilitated. She became healthy and whole. She has a family. He wrote about her. So there is this myth, or I don't want to call it a myth. There are chances that the narcissist, the psychopath, the borderline personality disorder, those people who do the work and take an observant effect and observe their actions and reflect on what they do, I think they can become aware of their actions. Not sure to what an extent will they change it. They will be able to become aware of it. And I believe the awareness will create the change eventually if they continue the work.
Telisia, I know we are talking in context of marriages, but also relationships. How can we spot a narcissist, before we enter into a relationship, a committed relationship? What are the red flags that we should look out for?
And those flags are red, right? What do they say? The red flags, it's not a carnival, it's not, come on, enjoy the joyride. It's not going to be a joy. And that's the whole thing. At the beginning, it looks like a joy. It looks so awesome. It's just too good to be true. It's this love bombing. It's flowers. It's gifts. It's talking your language. It's liking the stuff you like. It's just like so
Perfect.
It's this high. It's just this chemistry. It's just this rush. That in itself is addictive. It's just this absolute wow, euphoria. It's just nothing can be better than this. That's what we call love bombing. And I promise you, I don't ever want to experience that again. I never want to experience that ever again. If I can help it, I don't want to be in love, so to say, again. You know, that typical, in love, because that's not mature love.
Yeah.
You know, I want to, in my conscious next relationship, and I've been single for many years, I want to be in admiration of a person. I want to be in respect of a person. I want to be in conversation with a grown-up person who's mature, who has conscious language, who has a reverence for life. Not this severity, this up and down, this absolute love bombing. It's fake. That's a red light.
Yeah.
Then slowly, the gaslighting starts. That's not how it happened. You don't know. You don't understand. You're 100% wrong. That's not how it played out. You did this, not this. And then the projection starts. You're so selfish. You're so manipulative. You're so childish. I wish you never entered my life. You know, then the breaking down starts. Oh, and the most wonderful thing the narcissist will say is, you've got nobody. Nobody loves you. You only have me. You know? Yes, nobody loves you. You don't. Not even your family loves you. Your mom doesn't love you. Yeah. So, and then they start slowly to isolate you from the world, and they'll make themselves stand tall and look wonderful and grandiose, and they'll diminish you slowly and slowly. And when their plan succeeds, they'll make you to be the crazy one, the one that jumps on high walls to get into your place because you're the crazy one. You don't have boundaries, they tell the psychologist. Meanwhile, it's because they are sitting in the house and they don't open for you because they just they treat you like a piece of rubbish. Because they can, because they're grandiose, because they're great, because they have no remorse. They have no remorse for their actions. They will ignore you. They will block you. I'm not saying, I know we like to block sometimes. Block you. I often find myself to block and to unblock. Yeah. You know, but it's that those actions that are left unaccountable and coldless, heartless, callous actions. You know, like just not answering the phone, just ignoring you, gaslighting you, telling you this is not how it happened. Projecting, you know, they have an affair and then you call them out on it and then they're like, yeah, but what about that guy you had lunch with? And then the guy you had lunch with is a gay guy. You know, it's like, exactly. Yes. Those are the red flags. And you'll feel it most probably in your gut. Your gut feeling is your guardian angel. And it's Holy Spirit. If you don't listen to that gut feeling, you're going to pay the price. You know it when you're involved with somebody who's distorting your reality. You know when you're involved with somebody who's, you know, slowly breaking you down. The moment you're not feeling yourself anymore, you have to start asking yourself, what's up? And you see, we tend to fall in love with narcissists because we don't know ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we don't love ourselves. Because we're codependent. Because we've got a hole. We have this void and we hope this person will fill it. We meet this person. We're like, yes, Mom, phone your mom. Mom, I met this guy, and it's like my whole life has come to this point to meet him because this is the prince on the white horse, you know? Or you meet this girl and you're like, she is exactly what I want for myself, for my children, or whatever. And then slowly, you almost betray yourself. And you'll only realize that you're betraying yourself if you have done the work, if you've become conscious, if you have, really invested in filling the void from within.
Yeah.
And you'll spot it. You'll spot a narcissist. Listen, I have one phone call with somebody over the phone. It's not 5 minutes, I can tell you.
Wow.
I know. I just know. And that's just on a professional level. In a personal instance with potential dating guys, men who are narcissistic or abusive, so to say, they won't even look at me. I know it because my energy is too high. I've got a natural, I think, a wall that's been built around me from the work I've done. I don't get that. I don't get an energy attraction from a guy that's a narcissist anymore.
It's like they spot the victims
Exactly.
from a mile away.
Exactly. And it's a victim. It's especially in that sense where you've got this narcissist that's grandiose and superior and very, very, this maximizer. And they often fall in love with strong women or men, strong, however, soft and empathetic and kind, and prone to take the projection.
Oh.
Yes, that's the thing. If you don't know yourself, you'll take the projection. You'll take it that the person tells you you're selfish and you're heartless and callous and whatever. You'll take that projection and you'll die inside. You'll go crazy. You'll end up in an institution. I can give you my word. It happens. Unless you become whole and aware. So, if I tell you, Mornay, you know what, Mornay, you are a green, slimy goosebump. Are you going to take it?
Absolutely not.
Why?
Because I know who I am.
Because you know you aren't, because you are not a green slimy goosebump. You're not going to take it. Whatever a green slimy goosebump is, you're not going to take it because you know who you are.
Yeah.
And that's the point. We need to know who we are so that when the stuff is being projected onto us, we can say, you know what, it hurts my feelings when you say that I am heartless and callous. It actually makes me guess why you would say that. And it confuses me a lot and it makes me sad. I feel sad when you say that because I know I'm many things, but I'm not heartless and I'm not callous. Then you'll not take the projection. But if you take it, you can die. Yeah. So spot the red lights, empower yourself. Again, in this day and age, we shouldn't be falling in love with a narcissist. We shouldn't. There's just too much information going out there. There's just too much information surrounding the red flags. Because the last thing you want in life is to have a child with somebody who is a pathological liar, narcissist, quintessential narcissist that cannot take responsibility, that gaslights, that projects, that only has these big defense mechanisms going on and everything is your fault and nothing is their fault. How do you raise a family? How do you even maintain a family? How do you raise a child? What becomes of that child with such a parent? It's dangerous stuff we're talking about. You cannot just go around and call anybody a narcissist, or a psychopath for that matter.
Yeah.
These are dangerous things. And the most dangerous thing about it all is that there are many people out there who suffer from this, from personality disorders. And therefore, it is so important for you to be whole so that you don't allow this to be attractive to you. Again, when you're broken, brokenness looks attractive. Change begins with me. Heal yourself, whether in a relationship, in the marriage, or when you have, like you said, I have the luxury, to do the work by myself, to educate myself and heal myself. And I'm very happy I did. I'm extremely happy I didn't go into a new relationship after my divorce. It's been more than 5 years now, and I'm very happy because I know that even though I had many countless nights where I felt alone, where I had to endure the smell of the braai vleis and the braai meat and the fire from my neighbors, when I didn't have a date at the wedding, or when I had to go to my father's funeral alone. That was tough. It was hard. But I'm telling you now, it's way harder being in a relationship which is wrong, which is destructive, which is toxic, which is unconscious. Yes.
Don't you think that we jump into relationships too quickly? And that's where people get stuck in a relationship with a narcissist, because you didn't give it in much enough time for those actions and behavior to reveal itself.
Exactly, Mornay. And also because we tend to quickly become physical with well, not just with the narcissist, overall. Especially when you've been married and you're divorced, and you meet someone and you're grown up now. You've had children, for example. You've had sex in your life. So, and throw in a bottle of wine or two and a fine dining experience, and before you know it, you're sexually involved with this person. And then it's very difficult to just end it, or to not be in it. It's almost as if that physical thing gets us into a bond with this person. I actually want to say bondage, but into a bond with this person. And then we didn't give it enough time to get that deep, if I can put it that way, or to that level. And then the red flags are seen.
But it's too late.
It's too late, because now it's difficult. How do I end this? How do I stop sleeping with this person? How do I break up now? There's this bond. Maybe you're enjoying it, so you want to be there just a little bit more, or maybe you feel guilty about it. I've had that situation where I went to, I knew a guy, and we drank a bit of wine, we got intimate, and I felt so guilty. I thought, well, now I did it, so I should stay with him.
Yeah.
It was one of the worst decisions I could have made. It was such an abusive relationship. And I remember I once phoned his dad, so that I said, listen, you have to come and sort out your son. I can't believe I allowed myself to be in such a relationship. I have to be honest. I feel sorry for that girl. And I've went, and did the work and apologized to her myself, did the work. And I understand why I was in that relationship, because I didn't know better. And because I made the mistake that so many people make. You meet someone and you think it's okay. You sleep together. Oh my goodness. And what big repercussions does it have? Because if I had given it time, if I were healed, if I were whole, I wouldn't have even gone to visit him. Okay, but I did. So if I were healed and I were whole, I would have said, okay, well, thank you for the movie, and I would have gone home. Because I didn't need to lie next to somebody, or I didn't need to have the company of somebody, or I didn't need to not be alone. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yes. So I think we get physical too quickly. Well, not we get physical too quickly. I think some of us get physical too quickly. And then that causes a barrier and almost like a veil for the red flag. So we see it, but we also don't see it. And we see it, but we don't know how to get out of it, because now there's this physical bond. Yes.
So give it time.
Yes.
Delay the physical as far as you can. Give it time.
Give it time. Well, heal yourself. Get to a point where you don't need to be with anybody else but yourself.
Yeah.
Get to a point where there's a braai and you smell the neighbor's fire and the wood and everything, and you're alone, and you're like, well, this is nice. I've got good company, and that's myself. Because once you do that, then any other person, any other relationship will have to compete with that.
Yeah.
And that's big competition. When you met yourself, when you met your true self, when you are your authentic self. We sometimes get dressed in the morning, then we look good, then we're like, I don't know if you've ever done it. I did it in the past. Then I look for myself. I look pretty. Then I'm like, I hope he sees it. Take a selfie. Somebody should see this, I want him to see this. And then I realized I'm not getting dressed for anybody but myself, It's a different kind of walk in life when you become your own best friend, when you become your own big love. You don't need the approval of anybody else. And then when somebody does enter your life, it's on a way different level than love bombing and red flags and stuff. It's mature. It's conscious.
Heal and whole will attract heal and whole.
Absolutely. Beautifully put. Heal and whole will attract heal and whole. Look, you're still going to have your triggers. You're still going to work through your stuff because life has an agenda, and that's not to have us happy, but to have us whole. So you're still going to have that. It's gonna look different. There's going to be relational language. There's not going to be pathology. There's going to be reflection and insight. There's going to be conscious communication. There's going to be time out. There's going to be time. There's going to be, so many things that I wish every relationship can be. Yes.
Telisia, if there's one thing that I can take away from our session today, that is just to do the work.
Yes.
Do the work. Start by doing the work yourself.
Yes.
That will automatically improve your marriage that you find yourself
Yes.
in. If you're stuck in a situation, if you're stuck in a marriage
Yes.
where there's no connection, start by doing the work yourself.
Yes. Yes. And what is the work? When I started with the work, I realized, okay, there is a hole. There's a very big hole in me. A hole spelled H-O-L-E, hole. And I said, I'm going on a mission to get my W back.
Wow.
So that it's W-H-O-L-E. I know, mind-blowing, right? Yeah, I often thought about it. Maybe I'm going to write a book, How to Get Your W Back, you know?
Love it.
Yes, I know. The fact is, that W, how to get your wholeness back, that W, the work, it stands for work, okay? What is the work? One, become mindful. There's lots of mindfulness practices out there. Do your daily meditations, do your breathing, become still in your cells. Take moment for your time, like you did this morning with the Lord. Sit in silence for a moment. Just breathe. Become still. Observe yourself. Observe your surroundings. Realize that the moment is beautiful because the moment is your life, you know? Well, I want to say, be happy for the moment, for this moment is your life. Become mindful. Know that everything in your life is there for a reason. So that's mindfulness. The second thing is, weigh your words, the words you speak towards yourself and the words you speak towards others. I like to say that you will be weighed for every word you've used. You know, you'll have to give accountability for every word. And not just that, words shape. God said, let there be light once. He once said it. There's still light today. You know, it never changed. So be mindful of the words you use towards yourself. Remember, you more than 70% water, so your cells, every cell is eavesdropping on what you're saying. Every cell hears what you say and think. Thirdly, your thoughts. Cultivate a beautiful, whole, healthy thinking style. Change your thoughts. Reach for the next best thought. Don't have these negative thoughts. You know, whatever you think will come true, whether you want it or not.
I mean, the Bible says, as man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
So is he. You know, so thinking is one of the most powerful things we can do. Think about this studio, this idea, this vision. It started with a thought, Mornay, and today it's tangible. Just like this table. This table didn't exist until somebody thought to design and make it. That's our thoughts. So think thoughts that are conducive to growth and to healing and to change. And you can change your thoughts any time of the day. Get yourself out of a low frequency energy emotional feeling. Talking about energy emotions, have gratitude. Live a life in the fruit of the Spirit with high frequency energy vibrations like love, peace, joy, humility, kindness, respect, self-control, all of those, the fruit of the Spirit. Cultivate such a mindset. Have such emotions. Remember, emotions aren't facts. They're only messages. They're messages. They want to tell you what's going on. And anger or frustration, those emotions, it's just the umbrella emotion of something underneath. So do the work and figure out what you're really feeling. Figure out what's underneath the hurt, because most probably it's something like disappointment, or maybe a fear of abandonment, something deeper than hurt. And then the fifth one, I would say, take responsibility. Take responsibility for the seed that you sow. And by taking responsibility, it sometimes means that you have to say, I'm sorry, to yourself and to others. Saying sorry, however, is not enough. For this world to be for this world to be the world that God intended it to be, we need to take responsibility by changing our actions. Think about this. In the story about Adam and Eve and the apple in the garden, the woman didn't take responsibility. The man didn't take responsibility. The snake didn't take responsibility, as far as I know. Nobody took responsibility. Imagine if they took responsibility.
Sure.
What would have happened?
Sure.
Yes.
Telisia, what a wonderful session. So where can people reach you? If they want to do the work, start to do the work by attending one of your workshops perhaps,
Yes.
or perhaps schedule a one-on-one session with you.
Yes.
How can they get in touch with you?
I'm on Facebook. My website is still 2 years in the making. So now I'm moving to Melkbosstrand, so now I have to redo it again.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful how God sends me business and clients, and the right clients. Not that there's any wrong clients out there, but I mean, people just meet each other the way life intends. So connect with me on Facebook. And connect with me on Messenger, TCF Holistic Solutions. That's my business. I've got a business page. I'm very visible, especially on Facebook. I don't know what I'm doing on Instagram. I have to be honest. I'll get social developers or so to help me in the future. So I am relocating to Melkbosstrand. So I'll be there three weeks a month, and then you can also invite me for workshops. I'm going to do a workshop in Bloemfontein in March. So yes, wherever it is, I fly around often and present workshops wherever you need it. So yes, connect with me best way on Facebook.
Amazing.
Yes.
Telisia, it's been wonderful to spend time with you in studio
Thank you.
today. I know that this stuff is going to bring about change in people's lives, and all for the purpose of staying married, staying together, and having a fulfilled and connected, safe marriage.
Wow, imagine that, right? And there's something we call an imago. We change and heal the world one couple at a time.
Wow.
Yes.
Love it.
Yes.
Love
me
it.
too. Thank you, Mornay. Thank you for having me in studio today. And thank you for persisting in this vision. You see, that's the thing. It's about choices. You could have easily chosen not to do this, and so many lives would have not been touched. And you just said, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to choose to see these people. I'm going to choose to put the money in this. I'm going to choose to develop this. And here we are. I choose us.
Telisia, I said this before, but if we record 1,000 episodes, spend all this money, all this time, all this effort, and we can save one marriage, it will be worth all the effort for me personally. So that's the heart behind this podcast. Because we've got amazing experts like yourself in South Africa, and I just know that people's lives are gonna be touched through this, and that's the purpose. That's the heart behind I Choose Us.
Definitely, that's beautiful. You've got a very beautiful why. It's an infinite why. Whenever something is infinite and it conduces change and healing, it will live on forever.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Thanks, Telisia.
Thank you, Mornay.